G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talk Stuff, Ukraine War Update for the 2nd of March 2026. The war I'm your host, the author David Applegate, and the war continues. Now there's a little place here who's Neshkrakin. Now here's the interesting thing. 2 days ago, Ukraine says they liberated it. They even showed flag raising. But if you do a reverse image search, it shows you 2023. And the story was from 2023. So, a couple of days ago, they run the same story on the same day. And this is not the first time they've done it. I'll even show you. If I can. Whoops. Gosh, that is. There it is. Russian forces advance on multiple fronts. They've taken 4 hours ago control of Latgovia, and right, the Russian name. I think it's in the news section. It's updated. There we go. 5th of July, 2023. And there's the first story. Third. Well, the Russian story is 4 hours ago. It actually has winter, unlike, yeah. So that's where we're at. We're at a war of words. Okay, so Russia has launched a couple hundred drones, mostly at Kharkiv, in retaliation for attacks on Belgrade and other areas of Russia, including the Lukoil refinery at Kukhnata. Actually, I think the H is silent. I forget which is which. Sometimes when you get a Google announce, they just echo in my head. All right, I try my best. All right, so we got probing and offensive actions. We got a new front trying to go around Kupiansk, recapture old territory, and Russians do it too. Sometimes when Russia goes on the offensive, Ukraine will reposition troops and leave wide areas for them to take. But then when Russia goes in the offensive, they move troops out of areas and lose them to Ukraine just walking in. There is no Ukrainian offensive. Ukraine keeps claiming they're on the offensive, but they only rush in when Russia leaves. Russia's got holes in its front too. No success at Lyman. The battles continue. Pressure mounting in other areas, but still only ripples on the map. A little bit of territory gained here and there. Again, most of the front here is frozen. Most of the front here is stalled. This has happened several times, but the Russians have made advances in little sections here and there, but none of the significant towns have fallen, and most of it is just filling in gaps between towns where the Ukrainians have ceded territory. Irony, isn't it, that the Ukrainians cede territory to protect their towns, but the Russians can't go around them because they do have networks of trench lines and artillery. You just can't walk around a town. You're within firing range. They do have. This is the fire-based strategy, or you go back to the days of cavalry, the fort in cannon range strategy. So the cannons from the forts would overlap in the middle. Now you have a series. Now, you have a series of battles were along here, but there's been nothing in the last few days. Also to note, still going on with very little change to the map. But it's winter, there's less action, less activity, and we're coming out soon of that, so it's going to be a quagmire. So you'll notice, right, December, July, August, September, October, they're going to be more active than other months. Weather is dictating most of the fighting season in Ukraine, as well as economics. Russia is also tiptoeing around the fact that if they're too successful, they get a B2 visit. They don't want a war. They just want this resolved. Yes, I know, the irony, but I think you can catch the nuance that they don't want a wider war. Ukraine, of course, was a bear trap for Russia to begin. You know, a provocation that they can't get out of so quickly. But yes, Zelensky's a coward, and he will suffer a coward's fate, whether he likes it or not. Now, Russian tanks it was announced a couple of months ago, Russian tanks to get new drone technology. Now, some of them, this is these little mortar canisters that you see on some tanks. They pop out, explode to create a sympathetic detonation near tanks that does often set off incoming high explosive rounds. Most rounds are high explosive anti-tank, but you've got to remember a lot of American artillery is high explosive, but not, and American javelins are high explosive, but not the armor piercing rounds. They are not often detonated. First-person drones, definitely. Now, American tanks have similar technology. They also have a range of electronic warfare and sensor packages. And this anti-drone technology does rely on micro technologies. And this is the whole thing about remember when they're complaining that Russia's putting washing machine chips in tanks? No. Russia actually bought a whole bunch of old Samsung washing machines, not to put in tanks, but while they were converting their chip production to military production, a lot of their factories that were producing consumer electronics, such as the timers in washing machines, were being in short supply. Such chips were in short supply for consumer electronics, such as washing machines. So they bought them from Korea, because Korea has a dual trade system, right? A lot of the stuff made in Korea is actually, some of it's made in North Korea, and North Korea gets to sell some of that to Russia. And China. Where would they be without US? Where would they be without the ability to buy our technology? And it's the same with us, without the ability to, right? We couldn't track them so well. Now, reports of injuries, there were 172. Yes, so Russia, as you can see here, they've deployed, now this is, I think, this is a Terminator, but it's on it's already expended its missiles, and you have what's called a anti-material rifle. Now, if you play video games, it's often called an anti-tank rifle. That is not true. Sure, there was originally the boys' anti-tank rifle, but most of these rifles these days do not have the ability to penetrate more than a few millimeters of modern armor. Although some can penetrate 10 and 15 millimeter light tanks, but most of these guns, no, they can actually, though, however, destroy a tank if you get a good shot in the weak spots, if you know where to hit. But yeah, anti-material rifles are technically to take out trucks, like literally disable a vehicle by putting a bullet through its cinder block. So not cinder block, it's engine block. But it can blow through a lot of bunkers as well. So it's not meant for people, it's meant for material, as in sniping artillery operators or mortar or sniping the artillery or sniping the mortar, literally disabling enemy equipment. However, because such shots are rare from range and whatever, most of the time these rifles are used in ambush situations. But lately, Russia's producing more of these rifles for shooting drones. Now, it's not really highly effective, but it's what you'd call the filling the gap. Russia's trying to get a higher kill ratio on drones, and you can't keep putting out more and more high-speed 35 millimeters. So they have to turn to anti-drone guns of various means. Now, America has put out anti-drone technologies as well, mostly, however, electronic jamming equipment. Now, Russia has electronic jammers, but again, it's about chip production and cost and filling in these gaps in their anti-material warfare. Now, most of the news today was about Iran. There was very little out of Russia over. There were a lot of it does have to do with the retaliation. But a lot of the stories are old as well. There is virtually no new good news or new news out of Russia to indicate what is happening, where they are going with the war. You can't trust Ukraine to tell you where it's going, because Ukraine has pretty much put their foot down. They want another round of talks, but this time, and it's the same again, right? They got finally an agreement on no foreign troops in Ukraine, but then Zelensky's turned around and says he won't cede any land, so the talks ended a day early. Then he wants another round of talks, but Russia says they may not show up if Zelensky, well, they will show up to talk to the US about the nuclear treaty, but not about Ukraine. They've said they are undecided whether or not to show up at the talks later this month, because Zelensky refuses to. Now, I had the story up on Putin, but it seems to have refreshed itself into oblivion. So I don't see it either. This is what happens when you turn your back. When you can't freeze a web page. Alright. I should have recorded sooner. I did. I was too busy trying to find a better translation of his speech because it was poorly done. But Putin is adamant that Russia will not cede 1 inch, and that Ukraine is dreaming, I believe was the proper translation, that Russia will ever cede territory to them. Right. And that he believes they're being generous with their peace offers, but won't give, He also said that Europe is failing in their war against Russia, and that Russia will maintain its independence it's not really, but, you know, I think Mr. Putin is also dreaming, given how much control China has over their economy now, which is exactly why China got Ukraine into the war in the first place. And you know, and if you don't, China was the one who supplied Ukraine with all these loans in the first place to build their new armies, and Ukraine started building in the east, not the west, even though they're supposed to be a Russian ally. They sold motor plants to China for small motors and started producing drones for China. A lot of the drones in Ukraine today are now coming from China, but originally they were Chinese drones being made with small motor plants in Ukraine. Because, believe it or not, a lot of Ukrainians earn less than Chinese workers do. And there was a big market in Europe for drones, and still is, even if they're not military use. Now, again, you see, this is mobile artillery, pieced together, though, from file photos, not current. But that's what the trench really looks like. Dirty, dusty. But this is actually from a training mission. I've seen this one often enough and reversed imaged it to know. We've seen it so many times. It's actually from a training mission in trench clearing. Right, so various battle groups have achieved various levels of success, but only one advanced. Lots of drones, lots of killing, nothing of consequence. It is unfortunately typical for most of Ukraine today. I should try to be more sexy and entertain you on war so that you would stay longer. But that's all I've got for you today. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. Please support the channel and support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. Appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video. Bye for now.